General question of also don't move around too much in the chair because it makes fart noises. So I'll be adding those sound effects later anyway. With your name and your place and date of birth.
My name is George Lafontaine, George Guy Andre Lafontaine, and I was born in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, which is the second largest island in the Caribbean, and originally known as Hispaniola, and split 1/3, 2/3, 1/3 French and 2/3 Spanish, and I was born in the French portion.
And when were you born?
I was born on January 22nd, 1935 at 10 minutes past midnight. At least that's what I was told.
And how old are you now?
I am 69, soon to be 70 on January 22nd, 2005.
Okay, so let's talk about your childhood a little bit. So tell me how many brothers and sisters you have and where do you fall in the birth order?
Well, I had 3 sisters and 1 brother, all older than I. You notice I say older than I, not older than me. And the 3 girls were first born, and then came my brother, and I was the mistake because I came in 7 years afterwards.
And who were you closest to? Or what were the names of your brothers and sisters?
Well, my oldest sister name was Odette. The next one was Simone. Then Alice. Then my brother Claude. Then I followed.
And who were you closest to?
Oh, I'd have to say Alice probably, because there was 9 years difference, and I was sort of spoiled because I was the last one in the family. But Alice is the one that, in many ways, was with me and taught me to many of the French songs that I still remember today.
When you were born, what did your parents do for a living?
When I was born, I don't remember what my dad did at the time, but as I grew up, he worked in construction, and in particular, the most memories that I have is that when he worked for Reynolds Aluminum, which had a bauxite mine in the southern part of the island. And these were, of course, that was in the mid-40s till the mid-60s. So these were the memories that stayed with me.
That's funny. I always thought it was Reynolds Tobacco was the same company.
Well, I don't know, Reynolds Aluminum, and I guess it's the same family. In fact, Adlai Stevenson, who was a successful candidate in 52 and 56, was his mother was a Reynolds. And as a result, in fact, he came to Haiti and stayed at my father's house. So that's my bit of name dropping here.
Okay. This is a really sensitive mic, so just be careful on the, because I don't want it, if it's stepping on what you're saying when you hit that chair. So it's funny because you said Reynolds. I always thought it was Reynolds. I think I just assumed.
Well, they're related, but
I just assumed he'd work for the tobacco company.
No, he works for Reynolds Aluminum.
What did he do?
And my dad was a superintendent. They were first they had to. This was in the southern part of the island, and they had to build the roads to get to the area that was open pit mining, and they had to, as I say, build a road and do open excavation. And the bauxite was not refined in Haiti; it was sent back to the States for refining.
And when did that bauxite mine go? It was done and.
Oh, I don't. They had rentals at another mine in Jamaica as well, and I don't know that necessarily the mine was exhausted, but market prices influence the situation as to what they were doing.
So would you say, growing up, you were in your childhood, you were poor, comfortable, or well off as a family at that time?
Oh, we were comfortable as a family. By Haitian standard, obviously, it was perhaps in the top 1 or 2%, because as you can see even today, the situation in the island is that you have a very small sliver of educated people, and the rest is totally 90% of the people in the country can't even read. So.
What was your describe your childhood? Would you describe it as a happy time?
Oh yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Okay, I'm sorry. You have to. But this is a case where you have to incorporate the question.
No, my childhood was very happy. Well, the only sad part about it is that my oldest sister, died in 1943. And so I was 8 years old. And 2 years before that, my grandmother passed away in 1941. And those were the two affected my mother a great deal. But for me, it was not really, I understood, obviously, and some other memories are very vivid for me, but I was not really affected by that particular situation. When you said if you were, my mom came from a very well-to-do family. My grandfather was a doctor, and they had 7 kids. And he had a stroke when he was 51 years old, and spent 7 years in bed. And my grandmother, who although had a French name, called Lizer, but basically was of Italian origin, was very, very soft with her family, but I guess very tough as a businesswoman, because when she died in 41, she left an estate worth in Haiti somewhere over $100,000, which was a lot of money then. My dad also came from a very well-to-do family. My grandfather had a store downtown, and they were so well-to-do, in fact, that they used to spend 6 months in France and 6 months in Haiti. And when they went to France in those days, there were no planes, so they went by boat, and they used to take maids and everything else with them. But somewhere down the road, he lost his sight and lost his money. But my dad, he had a accounting degree from Europe, although he used it, but for whatever reason he liked construction, so that's what they. But
sorry.
Go ahead.
So when you said it was your childhood was happy, what made it happy for you?
Oh, I was loved. I mean, being the last one in the family, I had all the attention, if you will. Although my mother was a fairly stern individual, but extremely loving. So it was a combination of discipline. So you knew what the boundaries were. So as long as you remained within the boundaries, everything was fine.
So what was your neighborhood like?
Oh, my neighborhood, I had a Palestinian family living next to us on one side, and they had, like most Palestinians in Haiti, who would have stores downtown, and that's where, in fact, I learned to eat kibbeh, which is surprising to most people. I'll eat the meat raw. I'll eat it cooked as well, but I learned to eat it raw with oil and onions. And on the other side, I had I didn't know him. He was dead by then, but a German family. Well, the father was German, the mother was Puerto Rican, and they lived next door to us. And the name was Widmeyer, Widmaier. And they had a couple kids, and one of them was a very good friend of mine. His name was Carlos, you know.
Did you and your family take vacations?
Yes, and in Haiti, and we lived in Port-au-Prince, which is of course at sea level, and there in the summers, it's not particularly humid, but hot as hot. So we used to go up the mountains, where obviously it was cooler, and school would end sometime at the end of June, so we would go up there from early July till the end of August to go back to school in September.
But you were quite a bit younger than your siblings, so did everyone go? I mean,
well,
you know what I mean? If you were 8, then Claude would have been...
Well, Claude, I was younger, of course, being the last one. Claude was then 15, and Claude went to medical school, finish in the secondary school at 16, and he spent the first year at the medical school in Haiti, and then was sent to France, to the southern part, Montpellier, which is towards the Spanish border, and is the oldest university medical school in France. And that's where Hippocrates took the oath. Excuse me. And so he left. He was 16. In fact, he graduated. He was in the year he graduated from medical school. He was the youngest in France. He was born there, by the way.
He was born in...
Yeah, my brother Claude was born in France. My dad, my mom and dad. Dad at the time was kind of a political deal. He was the what they call a charge d'affaires, which is the step lower than the ambassador in to Italy, except that residing in Paris. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. And so that's where my brother was born. So he was born outside Paris in a little community called Le Valois. So he was a Frenchman, if you will.
So did you like school when you were growing up?
Oh yes. If I liked school, yes. I did very well in school. I finished in 1952, which was 17, but it was the 13th grade, a year beyond the 12th grade, and I had very good classmates, so I never really got into trouble, and school was a very good part of my life. But in those days, towards the end, my last 3 years of high school, my dad was working for Reynolds, as I mentioned to you, in the southern part of the island. And Mom had stayed in Port-au-Prince with me because that's where I could go to school. But in the summer, we would go over to the southern part, and that was up in the mountains, so it was quite a bit cooler. And really enjoyed it because that's where I learned to ride horses and stuff. And I even learned to ride in bareback. So.
And you enjoyed school?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. We had.
I'm sorry, you're going to say you really enjoyed.
Yeah, I really enjoyed school. I was. One of the things, though, it was. I used to sometimes be indisciplined, if you will, but I was a very good student. So, but there was a brother. I went to a brother school, the Christian Brothers, and many times I was put in detention. And what they had me do, what he had me do, this particular teacher, was to learn Spanish verbs. And there are about 500 irregular verbs in Spanish, which meant that I learned to conjugate those verbs. And as a result, I learned the language, apart from the fact that we also had it as a second language in school. But I learned to speak Spanish properly, because once you know a language grammatically, it's a lot easier to speak it, and you speak it properly. So, and we can leave that for down the road. But when I went to school, later on in college, the government of Venezuela had just shut down the university down there. So there were quite a few very well-to-do Venezuelans. And so they sent their kids to the States, and quite a few of them were also in college. So I was given a chance to perfect my Spanish. And to this day, if I understand everything. Some of the words I forget, of course, but when I hear them, I know. But they will tell you, if you talk to cleaning lady here, Paula, she will tell you that I don't have an accent when I speak Spanish.
Were you in, when you were in high school, were you involved in any other activities? Like extracurricular?
When I was in high school, no, I was not really sports minded and stuff. I played soccer, of course, because everybody does, but I was not in any way, shape, or form a star or anything like this. And in terms of, apart from soccer, in a country like Haiti, there was no football or very little basketball. And anything that really required uniforms and stuff that became fairly expensive for the local population was not really practiced to any great extent. So, but as a soccer player, I was not. I was very average. No, I was goalie, by the way, but average goalie, nothing special.
Let's talk about. Did your family move around a lot when you were a kid, or no?
No, we stayed in Port-au-Prince. As I said, my dad, for towards the end of my high school, was working outside of Port-au-Prince in the southern part of the island, and still in town with my mother for me to go to school. Dad would come, or every 2 weekends. And I look forward to that because, of course, we would go out to dinner and stuff like this. So, but otherwise, we didn't move around at all. Of course, the place is fairly small and restricted, so there was no.
How big is Haiti as far as?
The portion of the island is about the big Haiti is as big as. Roughly the state of Maryland, whatever that means. In fact, the reason I say this is that it was always referred to as being as large as Maryland. And but if you were to ask me how many square miles Maryland has, I don't really know.
So let's talk about your parents.
Yeah.
So what was your mom?
My mother?
What was her name? What was her name?
My mother's name was Renee, and excuse me, and her nickname was Mother Little Queen, and I get very emotional because I was very attached to my mother. Being the youngest one, I was, the other ones being older and grown up, so I was much more around my mother than although at least while she was there, as I said, when I was a boy, would teach me these songs that I still remember today. Some 60 years afterwards, or 65 years.
And what about her background?
Who, my mother's background? Oh, no, mother just finished high school in those days. Women didn't go to college or anything like this. And she did spend my grandfather's brother, which I'm having some problem for whatever reason remembering his first name, who was the ambassador of Haiti to Washington. So mother spent, and he wasn't married. So my mother and her sister spent a year in Washington, but she never really learned to speak English. I mean, she had some basic understanding, but no. But anyway, the way she was brought up in these particular societies is that the women didn't do, you had all kinds of servants, so you did what you wanted to do rather than try to like what you're doing. Like my mother never cooked a day in her life, and but on the other hand, she was an excellent seamstress because she enjoyed making, clothes and stuff like this. In fact, as you know, that she made the baptismal gown that all your kids and the grandchildren have been. I don't think that Gemma wore that gown that I know of.
I think we took some photos.
Yeah, I think we did bring it, and you did make a picture of Gemma in that gown that you wore, and all your brothers and everybody else.
And so talk about your dad. What was he like?
My dad was a happy-go-lucky guy who had very good jobs, but as the French call it, he had they say it's a loose translation, but a hole in his hand. In other words, he was a soft touch. Anybody that wanted a couple of dollars, he'd give it. And of course, in the country where people are very poor, he was very giving, and in effect never had any savings because the guy would spend his money, and which was very hard on my mother because, of course, having come from a well-to-do family, to all of a sudden to have not necessarily pinch pennies, but having to watch your budget, and this had a great deal of influence on me, in the sense that, as I may have said that to you, I've been, your mother and I have been married 45 years, and never once have I ever been late in the bill. And this is because of my mother was very conscious of these type of things. And
so yeah. I'm going to need you to say that again. Also, I know it's very difficult, but
Okay.
that's going to show up.
Well, that's okay.
Can you reword that Andreen and I have never. So that is not. You're not referring to me when you said your mother and I.
Come again.
So instead of saying your mother and I have, in 45 years, I've never been.
Well, Andreen and I. Yeah. Andreen and I, since we've been married for 45 years, and as I said, because of her bringing and watching my mother, keeping the bills and stuff, I've never been late in the bill in 45 years.
And just back to your dad for a second. So was he affectionate?
Oh yeah. In fact, I can't ever remember my dad spanking me at any time. And I can't really remember my dad hollering at me, because by the time in truly my formative years, by the time I was 12 or so, he was away. So my mother raised me, and she was a disciplinarian, very, very loving, but very much a disciplinarian. But that wasn't, as I said, that was not a problem, because for me, because of my own temperament, knowing what my limits were, I stayed within those limits, so I didn't have really much of a problem. Oh, occasionally, I was supposed to come. For instance, when I was 12 or 13, I was supposed to come home when the street lights would go on, and a few times I would come in late, but mother never really hit me. She would holler at me and stuff, but nothing special. And the memory I have of her is she kept her hair very long. It was down to her waist. In the picture I have of her, of me being late at night, is mother pacing in front of the house, and I can see her picture with her long hair. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about school after high school.
Well, after high school, well, it's a school for university. Normally, in my family, the boys anyway, the girls weren't expected to go to university, but my brother Claude was sent to France to go to medical school. And myself, normally I would have followed in his footsteps, except that working for Reynolds, there was the head of the department of the geology department, a fellow by the name of Robert Schrock, was used to do some consulting work for Reynolds. And he and my dad became friends. And as I say, I must have been 12 or 13. So he said to my dad that, asking what I would want to do myself. So Dad says, well, you'll probably go to France and study there. And Mr. Schrock said to Dad, well, why don't you send him to the States? So when I finished high school, Dad wrote to him, and they sent me not an exam. It was not an SAT type exam, but all kinds of questions, technical and otherwise. And I don't remember where I took it, whether I took it at the American Embassy in Haiti or what. But anyway, I was accepted at MIT, and one of the things in favor that helped me, I'm sure Schrock probably obviously had some recommendation, but MIT also had a policy of having foreigners, not foreigners, but different. They didn't want inbreeding, and they wanted diversification. So if you were from Massachusetts, it was very hard to get into MIT. It's a lot easier if you were from Alaska. and I was the first one from Haiti to go there, and obviously once I was there, there was nobody to take exams for me. So I mean, you know, if I didn't make it, it would have been on my own. So.
And so, what was that like? So you left?
I left. I was 17. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I had a very good English basis because, well, one thing that it's what happens is that in Haiti, a place like Haiti, you learn two languages because you speak French normally, so almost like the Swiss. And the second language is a Creole, which is a mishmash of everything. And so as a result, your brain is trained to absorb different sounds. And I had a very good English basis grammatically because of the fact that it was drummed into us in school. The accent was, of course, terrible because they were French teachers who didn't speak English properly. But in terms of English literature, I probably know more about English literature than many of my fellow students at MIT. In fact, that's why in the French system, you don't have humanities pass your high school graduation, but in the States you do have that because this is to make up for the high school deficiencies. In other words, nobody had to tell me what Shakespeare was, and or Rip Van Winkle for that matter, while at the same time, I studied in depth the French literature. So.
And so was it a scary time when you were?
Oh, very, very much so.
Okay, again, you have to.
Very much so to leave Haiti and go to the States in totally different culture, obviously, and not speaking the language. The first 6 months was extremely tough. In fact, one of the little anecdotes is that I remember coming to MIT for the first time. I landed in Logan Airport and took a cab to MIT, and he dropped me off at the front of the steps. And if you ever go there, the main entrance is something like 50 steps. So here I was with my luggage and stuff. I went up the steps and got into the admissions department where the head of the admissions department at MIT, which, was a fairly guy high up in the organization, presumably felt sorry for me because he helped me carry my bags to the dorms. And as a sequel to that, in those days, the desk at the various dorms were manned by employees rather than later on it became students, but originally it was employees. And one of the employee that was there when I came in with this guy was also used to monitor the swimming pool. And he must have thought that I was really somebody because after this experience, because when I'd go swimming and stuff, he'd call me to his office and give me Coke and sandwiches and stuff. So it's kind of a little sidelight there.
And was school difficult for you?
Oh yeah, school was very difficult for me because I didn't speak the language. Now, certain areas in math, I had a very good preparation. In fact, the first semester and a half, I'd already seen it. I'd already had it, because I had a grade 13 in Haiti, and math is very abstract. And of course, there is not a question of language. Numbers are numbers. Where I had problems, really serious problems, is in chemistry because of the fact that there I had never used a Bunsen burner in my life. The teacher would use it in chemistry, but when I went to the lab, first there was a language difficulty, then the environment, which I was not familiar. I had a real tough time in, but otherwise, when it came to math or physics, I did well enough in the first semester. So, but chemistry really gave me a tough time. And also, I took, there was a course in accounting, and there, the concept was totally foreign to me, and it was very, very hard for me.
And how did you learn to speak English?
Well, I got there early in the summer before school started. I got to the States right after my final exam. So it was in July, and of course, school doesn't start till September. So for the 2 months I was there, I took a course in English. It didn't particularly help, but I used to go to movies. And you know how the movies are the same movie in those days. They show the same movie time after time after time. So I would go into the movie, and of course, seeing it for the first time, I wouldn't understand very much, but I would get the gist of the story by the pictures. Then I'd see the movie a second time, a third time, and sometimes fall asleep, wake up, and so again, because of the fact that I spoke French and Creole and Spanish, it helped me pick up the language. And as I say, grammatically, I had a very good background, so it was just a question of putting the words together. So I would say the first semester was the toughest. Some of the exams I had to take them with a dictionary because I couldn't understand what was going on. After that, I was able to pretty well understand. Speaking, I had trouble getting rid of the accent because there are certain words that are very, very difficult to, as you probably know. If you were to ask a Frenchman to say comfortable, he can't say that. He will say comfortable, you know. So, I mean, years afterwards, I still put the accent on the wrong syllable, as they say.
Do you recall any specific movies that you saw?
Oh, no, I don't recall any particular movies that it used to be in those days. Probably. No, I can't say. It doesn't really ring a bell. But these were the type of movies that you would expect in those days, like the Geronimos, and you know, the cowboy movie type of deal. That did not really make an impact on me. The story itself did not impacted me very much. But of course, I was there. I mean, I was trying to understand what the.
So after college, then where did you go?
Well, after college, I graduated in '56. My mom and dad came over from Haiti for my graduation. And mom had a sister, by the way, also called Odette, who had married a fellow of German origins, although his name actually is more Danish than German. It's Gaetjens, Gaetjens, as we used to say it. And during the war, the Haitian government declared war to Germany because some of the Germans' properties over there, they wanted to seize them and stuff. But he didn't really have that much problem. However, after the war in '46, he immigrated. They had 2 boys and a girl, and they immigrated to Montreal, Canada. And so in '56, when my mother came, she said, well, we're here in Boston, and why don't we go spend some time in Montreal? And then because I haven't seen my sister for 10 years, so that's how come I went to Montreal. And there, a funny story, well, the quirk of faith really more than anything else, is that there was a gentleman by the name of Ken Kidder, who we may talk about this a little later on, who was the father of Margot Kidder of Lois Lane fame. Used to sell dynamite in travel to the Caribbean, so he got to know my father. So we were walking down downtown Montreal when we saw this not advertisement, but this building with CIL, which is Canadian Industries Limited, for whom Ken Kidder worked. And so Dad says, well, I haven't seen Ken for a while. Why don't we go up and say hello? So we went up there and said hello. Oh, and he said to me, he says, oh, you just finished school. He says, why don't you go with one of my salesmen in the St. Lawrence Seaway around Montreal and see some of the projects around. So it was great because for a couple of days I went on the St. Lawrence with this young man, which I don't remember his name, and it was great. I mean, it was vacation for me, and they were buying my lunch and everything else. In the 2 days, I had about three job offers. So when I told that to Ken, he says, well, if you want to, do you think you like to work here now that you're finished? I said, well, I don't have any papers. So he and I went to the immigration department. Now, the province of Quebec had a particular arrangement with the Canadian federal government. Normally, when you apply to come into either Canada or other states, for that matter, you have to stay outside the country till the papers are processed. But Quebec had a special arrangement for French speakers, and the fact that I had a degree, an engineering degree, which was very much in demand in those days in Canada, and I spoke French, so we went to the immigration, and they told me, okay, go to work, and then we'll be in touch with you. Let us know where you are, and we'll be in touch with you. So that's how come I started work on the St. Lawrence Seaway.
So, do you think your dad wouldn't have even thought about Ken Kidder if you had not walked and seen that stuff?
Well, the meeting with Ken Kidder was not planned at all.
That's what I mean. You said.
No, it was not planned at all. In fact, I was supposed to be. I had a job in Haiti with an American company called Frederick Snare, which used to do. What escapes me now, but both landing areas and stuff. So I was going to work for Frederick Snare, and Frederick Snare worked throughout the Caribbean, so they probably would have sent me in various spots. But Canada sort of intrigued me, but the meeting with Ken Kidder was not at all planned. It was strictly a matter of luck that we walked into that office and things. And of course, when I went, the company I went to work for was called Atlas Winston, Atlas being a Canadian company, and Winston being Winston Brothers of Minneapolis. And the project engineer who became a lifelong friend of mine later on, a guy by the name of Vic Hughes, who was a project engineer, and they offered me in those days top dollar. I got hired in 1956 when I graduated at $450 a month, which was a lot of money then. And remembering that in those days the Canadian dollar was worth 20% more than the U.S. dollar, so it was really an excellent opportunity for me. So I stayed.
Were your parents disappointed that you didn't go back to Haiti?
No, not really. My mother was. My mother, no, well, mom, of course, would have preferred that I come back to Haiti, but for dad, that was sort of exciting that I could stay in Canada and work. So that was not really a particular problem for me to stay there.
So, talked about, let's just go back for a second on how you chose your career.
How I chose my career? Well, I really didn't have much of a choice. I had three of my best buddies who wanted to go to medical school, and I probably would have done the same thing. And three of them, one of them graduated the same medical school as my brother, Claude de Montpellier. Another one, and two others started in Montpellier. One of them went to Freiburg and is still living in Switzerland. And the other one became an ophthalmologist and finished in Canada and still there. I probably would have gone with them. But my dad in those days that decided that my brother being a doctor, one doctor in the family was enough. So he decided that I would be an engineer, so I became an engineer. Although, as I'm sure I mentioned to you guys before, I probably would have been a better doctor than my brother, and my brother a better engineer, because he was extremely, not so much practical, because he never really practiced medicine. He taught forensic medicine, but he was very logical in his thinking, and less, except for the women, he was less of a people person than I was. But so my dad decided, of course, having met this professor there, Schrock, decided to send me to the States. So I went to MIT, which, by the way, MIT was always very expensive in those days. Even in the early 50s, the tuition was $1,000, which was a lot of money. And what happened is that Reynolds said that they would pay my tuition as long as I maintained myself in school, obviously, but they would pay my tuition. So as a result, my 4 years in school, my tuition was paid by Reynolds. My dad provided for my room and board, but Reynolds paid the tuition.
And that was based on what?
Well, Dad worked for Reynolds.
Right.
And the fact that, I don't know. I think that the reason that Reynolds probably paid for that is that having been admitted, they said, well, okay, here, if he's admitted, if he can maintain himself. My dad was very well regarded as an employee, but they said that, why not? They probably felt that, coming from an underdeveloped country or everything else, that, why not? And of course, MIT was very much not interested in having me necessarily, but in having the diversity, because out of when I was there, and again, this was the early 50s, there were, as I recall, about 56 nationalities represented there. So,
was it the first time you had seen winter?
Yeah. In fact, I remember very much being my first winter day, which was not much of a snow, but what it was, I was with one of my classmates, and we were walking out to a diner. In those days, they had these diners, these like train cars, and we started snowing. I mean, little flakes, but that was the first time that I had seen snow. So it was a bit of an experience. Boston is a very cold place. Being close to the water, is very humid. So if you have Oh, 40 degrees in Boston is very cold. At least for me, anyway.
For your, so you touched on it a little bit, but for your job, if you had to do it all over again, would you choose the same career? Or?
Well, if I had been given a choice, I probably would have gone to medical school rather than engineering school. But like you always say yourself, you can't buy it back. So I decided to. Once I decided to go to school, well, that's what I was going to do.
And so when your dad said that this is what you're going to do, that was the end of the conversation?
That was the end of the conversation. He was not necessarily, my dad was not necessarily, he didn't have to be forceful about it. He said to me, he says, you know, instead of going to France and be a doctor, here's a chance to go to the States. And I found that somewhat challenging myself and exciting, because this was more of an adventure to me. Had I gone to France, where the language would not have been a handicap for me, and the environment, I mean, I would know the culture. Going to the States, to some extent, I didn't fight that because of the fact that, as I say, there was a bit of a challenge for me.